everyone. So for this video, we wanted to talk about beans and explore some of the things that we can do with them. We're going to look at sprouting beans. So that is using beans that we already have on hand that have already grown, and we've dried them, and now we're going to sprout them. We're also going to look at growing beans, and there's different types of beans. You can grow bush beans, so like the name suggests, they just grow on small little bushes and you pick the beans and eat them. And you can also grow pole beans, and those are the ones that grow really tall. They wrap around structures and trellises, and you can do some really beautiful, fun things with those types of beans. They will spread out over fences, they will climb up structures. You can create kind of secret little living lodges for the kids. They're a lot of fun. So we're going to look at both of those. For tonight, we thought we would start out sprouting some beans together. So one of the amazing things about bean sprouts is that they are so filled with so many nutrients and so many health benefits. So mung beans, for example, these are the green ones. Mung beans in particular are very, very healthy. They are full, they have significant levels of vitamin B1, vitamin B2, vitamin B3, vitamin B5, vitamin B6, vitamin B9, vitamin C, vitamin K, manganese, magnesium, copper, iron, lots and lots of nutrients. They also help with digestion. They have detoxification properties. They have antifungal properties, antimicrobial properties. They have high levels of antioxidants, which helps to fight cancer. They help to increase metabolism. They decrease inflammation. They also decrease high blood pressure, so lots and lots of health benefits. The one thing to keep in mind with bean sprouts is that because they sprout in warm, moist conditions, sometimes they can develop bacteria. So it's really, really important to rinse your beans. We're going to rinse our bean sprouts twice a day while they're sprouting, and then keep them in the fridge. But what people recommend is that you always cook them. So if they do develop any kind of bacteria, the cooking process will take care of that. I know lots of people that eat them raw and they're fine, but I did some research on bean sprouts, and they do recommend that to play it safe, we should cook them. So whether that's boiling them, putting them in a soup, cooking them in a stir fry, you can steam them. Because they're so small and tender, it only takes a couple of minutes to cook them. But as soon as that they're introduced to the heat, if there is any chance of bacteria, the heat will kill the bacteria, but we will still receive all of these beautiful health benefits. So for sprouting beans, it's super, super simple. Today we are going to sprout some mung beans, and I also have some Adzuki beans. These ones are the reddish colored beans. There's tons of different types of beans that you can sprout. Some of them taste better than others, so you can experiment and decide what you like. But all we're going to do on day one, you can see the window behind me, it's nighttime. So I'm just going to cover these beans with water. So the mung beans I just covered with water, as well as the Adzuki beans. Depending on the size of your container, that will determine how many beans you add. So as our beans start to sprout, they're going to expand and need more room. So if I filled this container halfway full of bean sprouts, as they start to sprout, there's not going to be room for them. The other thing is that every day, like I mentioned, we're going to be adding water, rinsing them and straining them. And you want to have room so that when you're rinsing them, you can stir them around and make sure we get a good rinse. So because of that, choose whatever size your container is, only fill up a small area in the bottom. They will expand a lot more than you think, but you always want to save room to stir them. So for day number 1, that's all we're gonna do. Add some beans to the bottom of a jar, cover them with water. We're gonna soak them overnight. The final thing about beans, sprouting beans, is they like to sprout in the dark. So once you have them in your container and they're covered with water, you can put them in a cupboard. I always like to put them on my counter so I don't forget about them. So I just put a towel over them. And then in the morning when I get up, I see them right away. I remember to strain them and rinse them. And then when I get home from work, or before you're going to bed, you're gonna see them on the counter. But whatever works for you, they prefer dark. So you can cover them with something or tuck them away in a cupboard. And that's stage 1. Good morning, everyone. So today is day 1. As you can see, I have my jars here on the counter where I can see them and remember I need to rinse them. All I did is cover them with a towel. I'm gonna pick the towel up. These are our 2 jars. I wanted to show you this one. So you'll remember from last night, the beans were probably half this size. Soaking them in water overnight, basically all that does is start to loosen the hard shell, which is gonna make them grow easier, but they also start to absorb some of that water, and as you can see, they're swelling. That is why you don't want to fill the jar too full. So I'm just going to swirl them around, give them a good shake. You can also add a little bit more water the morning of. Give them a really good shake. Sometimes as they get bigger, I'll take a spoon, just stir them up so that they're getting a good rinse. And then we're just simply going to strain them. So I have a strainer here. Just gonna dump all of the water into the sink. And then we're going to put the beans back into the jar. And now from this day forward, they're not sitting in water. We strain them, they are moist, but we're straining them every day and not letting them sit in water. So same thing with our Adzuki beans. They swelled up a little bit overnight. Just gonna stir them up. Give them a good rinse. Another option is while they're in your strainer, you can also run some fresh water over them, shake them off, make sure they're rinsed really well. And then again, we're just going to put them back in our jar. So that is what our Adzuki beans look like right now. Both beans are going to go back on the counter. They are not sitting in water. They have been strained. They're going to go on my counter. I'm going to cover them with the towel or with something that will keep them dark. And that's it for the day. Now you carry on with your day. Tonight when you come home, you're going to do the same thing. Fill them up with water, swish them around, rinse them, strain them, and then put them back in. Hi everyone. So it has been a full 24 hours since we started. Last night we soaked the beans overnight. This morning we gave them a quick rinse and drained them. And this evening, before I go to bed, I'm going to do the same thing. Just put some water in here, swish it around, rinse it really well, strain it, and then cover it for the night. Before I do that, I just wanted to show you what is already happening in here with our mung beans. Can you see those little white tails that are starting to form? So these particular beans start to sprout really quickly. With our Adzuki beans, there's not a whole lot happening. They have, they've swelled up and they're a bit bigger than they were, but the tails aren't forming yet. So we are just simply going to, I'm not sure if you can see this, I'm just filling up the jar with water. I'll do both of them. And then what I will do is just get a spoon, stir it around, so make sure that the water's rinsing through all of the beans really well. I'm gonna do is strain it into the sink. Look around, make sure that all the water drains out. And then put them back into the jar. Same thing with our mung beans. Stir them around, make sure they get really well rinsed off. Strain them. Make sure I'll give it time for all the water to strain out, because you don't want the ones at the bottom of the jar sitting in a little puddle of water. Then we're going to put them back in our jar and then cover them up with the towel for the night. And I don't think I'll make you watch me do this every morning and every night, but we are just going to follow the same process twice a day minimum. If you want to do it again in the middle of the day, you're welcome to do that. But that's all we're going to do for the next couple of days. Good morning, everyone. So today it has been officially 3 days since we started. We soaked the beans overnight Tuesday night, and then Wednesday morning, Wednesday night, we switched them and drained them. Same thing Thursday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning, Friday night. This is Saturday morning. I want to show you what our mung beans look like. So these guys are ready to use. And once you do these several times, you will get to know kind of what stage you like to eat them at. But this is what the mung bean looks like right now. So it has quite a long tail on it. That one is good to go. For me, I like them a little bit longer, so I'm probably going to do one more day of rinsing and straining and leaving them on the counter. And then tomorrow I will rinse them again, strain them really well, and then I'll put them in a container and put them in the fridge and keep them there until I use them all. And again, rinsing them really well before you use them will be really good. With our Adzuki beans, and this is a great example because it shows you, depending on the type of bean, some beans take a lot longer than others. So this one here, most of them are still waiting to sprout. They've definitely expanded and puffed up in size, but you can see, there we go. Can you see that little tiny tail that's starting? So this one is just beginning to sprout. So the Adzuki beans will probably take probably another 3 to 4 days before they are nice and long and soft and ready to eat. But again, experiment with the different beans and put them in your stir fries, in soups, in stews, in whatever you're making. They're delicious and really, really nutritious, and it's a lot of fun to do with children as well. They in my experience, they seem to really enjoy watching the beans sprouting, and it also connects them to that growing cycle and helps them to see how a little tiny bean seed, a bean is a seed, and how you give it water and it'll start to grow. So that's it for the sprouting, and now we're going to look at some bean structures if you want to plant some beans outside. So with this bean teepee, we have filled some holes with compost, really healthy soil. Tomorrow when the children arrive, we're going to get them to plant their seeds in all of these holes, and then as the beans grow, they wrap around these poles and grow up to the top. The other thing we do, if you decide to do something similar, is we've used different color yarn. You could use any kind of rope or jute or any kind of string, and we just, if you're doing it with the children, they can just start tying and weaving the string around the poles so that they're creating almost like a homemade mesh that the plants can spread out and cover this whole surface. So I'm going to show you some pictures of the bean teepee once it is covered and filled with beans, but this is what it looks like right now at this stage before it's been planted. Hi everyone, so now we're outside in the garden and I wanted to show you guys some examples of different structures and options that you could create in your home for your pole beans. So pole beans have what's called a twining stem, which means the actual stem twists around a structure and that's how it grows. Different plants, there are some plants that have things that are called tendrils and they come out and they wrap around, so really fine mesh structures work well for that. But for our pole beans, they have a twining stem, so the whole stem wraps around. So something like this is a bean teepee that the children from Nawassa created many years ago, and every year we replant it with new groups of children in their honor. I'm going to show you some pictures of the very first group of Nawassa children that planted the bean teepee. But what we do with this structure is at the base of each one of these poles, we plant the bean. So the bean will wrap itself up as it grows. The other thing that you can do is we have purchased just yarn from the dollar store, different colored yarn that's like nice and bright and fun for the kids. You can use jute, you can use you can use like a very small rope. So whatever you're going to use to tie with, you can start at the very bottom here and just tie a knot, and then the children can take the yarn and twist it around and twist it around and go around all of these poles. Remember to keep one section open for a doorway. So if they wrap it all the way around here, then they come back around and they're slowly building it up. That's going to allow the beans to spread out and cover the entire surface. So if we keep it like this, that's okay, but the beans will, you know, just wrap up the pole, and there will be spaces between the poles. If you just very loosely tie some string and kind of give them the option of growing sideways as well as up, then you're going to create a really beautiful wall of that the beans can wrap around. So this is one option. Something like this is another option. So this is the first year that we are trying this type of trellis. The strings that are blowing in the wind right now, we're going to stake them down and we are going to try to grow tomatoes this way, but this would also work really well with pole beans. So just something that they can wrap around and keep growing up nice and tall. This is another option. So we found these twirly sticks at the dollar store, and you could plant beans at the base of this and allow their stem to just twist all the way up. Also similar to the way that when we were looking at Nawassa's bean teepee, you could spread these sticks out and use some yarn or twine or jute or anything and just kind of tie from here over to here, over to here, coming up and up and up. So you're creating a wall that the beans can grow up and also spread out. Again, same idea. This is just rebar from Home Depot. Another option, you can just keep them as straight poles that the beans will wrap around, or you can take some kind of tying material and create some horizontal pathways for the beans to spread out as well. And I wanted to show you this structure because something like this trellis here would work for a pole bean. There's lots of space between this section and this section and this section and this section, so the stem of the bean can wrap around as it grows, and then it gets here and it'll keep going up, but maybe part of it will go this way and it will fill it all in. Behind here you can see a really thin wire mesh. This would not work for a pole bean because these holes are too small for the stem of the plant to get inside. Something like this works really well for climbing plants that have, they're called tendrils. They're little tiny shoots that come off the plant, and they just reach out through the air until they find something solid. and then they would wrap themselves around here and attach the plant to it. So it's not the actual stem of the plant going around, it's the tendrils that come and grab on, and they can grab on to really small spaces. So this would work really well for some plants, but not for your pole beans. So pole beans need lots of space so that the actual stem of the plant can get in and wrap around as it grows. I wanted to show you, so this is a Clematis, and it has something called twining leaves. So you can see here that the actual leaf has wrapped itself around the pole, and that is how the plant grabs on and starts to grow up. So that is different from our pole beans. If this was a pole bean, the actual stem of the plant would wrap around and go all the way up. And lastly, I wanted to show you, this is a grape arbor, and plants like grapes, they like to climb, but they have something called tendrils, and I'm hoping we can focus in on this. So this is like a little tiny offshoot that wraps itself around whatever is going to give it support. So again, different from the pole beans that we're going to be planting. The pole beans are the ones where the entire stem, so this whole piece of the plant is what's wrapping itself around. Some plants have tendrils, which are little tiny pieces that go like this and wrap themselves around to hold the plant up. And then the last one that I showed you was a twining leaf. But again, the pole beans have twining stems. So you just need to give them enough space for the entire stem of the plant to wrap around whatever you're using to trellis it and give it support. So I wanted to end the video showing you some pictures of the children from Nawassa who planted the bean teepee the very first year it was created. This year, we decided to plant in containers. So I wanted to make sure that you could see this, because for those of you who maybe don't have a backyard or a large area to put in a garden, you do have the option of growing beans and other plants in containers. So what we did is we put the beans in each of these containers, made sure there was a pole that offered some kind of support as the beans started to grow. And then we attach them at the top. You don't have to, you can have them continue to go up vertically. This is a picture of the bean teepee as it's starting to grow. So you can see the bean plants are forming at the base, and they're getting ready to start to twirl their way around the poles. And this is a picture of the bean teepee later on in the year. So we have, the children took the yarn and created that vertical, created the horizontal mesh so that the beans could actually spread out, and it created a really beautiful lodge for them. There's a doorway, so they would go inside, and because of gravity, all of the beans would hang down so they could sit inside of their living lodge and pick beans and eat and visit with each other. And I wanted to end with this picture because at the end of the year in the fall, we always leave some of the beans on the vines and allow them to dry out. So the children return in the fall, they harvest some of the beans and then they dry them over the winter, and we replant the bean structure in the following spring. So I hope this video was helpful, and that some of you found something in here that will be useful and support you in either making bean sprouts or in planting bush beans or the pole beans. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.